And so today we're going to be talking about 3 ways to make diversity a culture at your organization as opposed to something to just check off, all right? So without further ado, let's get into it, y'all. Greetings everyone, my name is Skylar P and I want to welcome you to another episode of Breaking Down the Bias, where we break down pop culture issues through a critical lens. Now today we're going to be talking about President Trump, or 45, and how he thinks critical race theory and white privilege are, divisive terms, and that diversity trainings are actually divisive. And the reality of it is that a lot of diversity trainings are divisive, and not because they're bad, but because usually when people think about diversity trainings, they think that, first of all, that they don't need them, and then second of all, when you tell someone that they have to go to a diversity training, you're calling them a racist, bigot terrorist, which is not necessarily the case at all. And so we're going to get into all of that today. But before we do, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button for the channel. And without further ado, let's get into it. All right, y'all. So number 1, these diversity trainings are not long enough or in-depth enough. And what I mean by that is that usually these companies will have a 1-hour diversity training once or twice a year, right? People don't necessarily get a chance to understand their biases and the stories of their coworkers in 1 hour. It takes multiple hours and multiple sessions and multiple different types of activities for people to build trust among each other, okay? That's what it takes. So you can't just have one hour training once a year and actually think that your staff is going to support each other or think about each other more or be more considerate of the different backgrounds that each of them have. Okay, so that is step 1. Have more diversity trainings and let them be more extensive than that once a year, 1 hour standard model that a lot of companies follow. Okay, let's go into number 2, shall we? All right, y'all, number 2. So here's the thing, diversity trainings are great. And yes, we want to have more of them. You want them to be more in depth, give people more time to know each other. But what you also want to do is do things outside of just having the diversity training that lets people of different backgrounds and storylines know that you are thinking about them, that you care about them, and that you support them. So, Skylar P, how do we do this? What's a practical example of this? Well, I'm glad that you asked. So for Indigenous Peoples Day, doing something like sending out an email, letting people know that, Columbus was a terrorist in every sense of the word, that he was an active facilitator in the genocide of so many Indigenous peoples. Is something that is extremely important to recognize and say at that company. Maybe sending an email or doing an activity or something to acknowledge things that are going on outside of just a diversity training, right? Because it's about allowing people to feel seen and to feel heard. All right, so that's number 2. Let's get into the final one, number 3. But the third thing is being reactive, right? And properly reactive to forms of discrimination and prejudice against people in your company, right? And so whether it's racism, sexism, ableism, homophobia, anything that happens that is traumatic, triggering, or hurtful to one of your employees based off their identity is something that you have to nip in the butt, and nip in the butt in a big way, right? Because people are watching you as a company, right? They're trying to figure out if they can feel secure, if they can feel safe, if they can feel acknowledged, and if they feel like they can actually see justice and realize justice in your company when something goes wrong. I'll tell you what, I know people at companies, and I've seen this even at my previous workplaces. They might have been racist or sexist or homophobic, but we had a supervisor who didn't tolerate that, who would punish you properly for it. And when that happens, even when someone refuses to change their beliefs, their actions change. Their actions are going to be less discriminatory. All of these things, when they add up, it creates diversity as a culture, not just a checklist. And when diversity is a culture at a workplace, the morale of your staff is going to go up, and the productivity of your staff is going to go up, and ultimately the profit of your organization is going to increase. And so we have to be thinking about these things constantly, not only from a financial perspective, but from a humanistic, ethical, moralistic standpoint, right? And so those are my 3 ways to make diversity a culture at your workplace and not just a checklist item, okay? So I want to know what you all think. Please make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you all next time, all right? This is Scala P, and I'm out.